start with Mr. Adams over there.
Hey.
I'm a big fan of his work, and I know as a DJ I play probably everything he's ever done with you, it's part of the Leroy, so I just want to let that be known right now. There you go.
What?
Say something.
Who are you?
I am Patrick Adams. I produced my first record about 4 years ago, actually, and Leroy was Leroy was the lead singer of the group Black Ivory, which was my first hit production. Shortly after that, I became A&R director of Perception Today Records. I worked with Fatback, worked with
Great stuff.
a whole list goes on. Left there in '74, started my own production company. Around that time, I and Greg Carmichael did the Universal Robot Band stuff. And then with a fellow named Peter Brown, not to be confused with Peter Brown from Florida. There's a promoter in New York named Peter Brown, and he and I did the P&P record stuff, Cloud One, Atmosphere Strut, and a whole lot of other stuff. In '78, I had a good run. Did the Herbie Man Superman album, did the Freak album, Patrick Adams Presents Freak, which includes a Weekend. Between '77 and '81, I think I worked on 22 album productions. Rick James, Big Time, which Leroy and his partners wrote. Got to produce Eddie Kendricks for Arista. Did some work with LMOR. It's a lot of stuff. Oh, all right. So then we go to the '80s. Oh, I wrote and produced Caught Up in the One That Love Affair. Shortly after that, Greg Carmichael and I produced Touch Me On. I wrote Touch Me All Night Long, and Greg Carmichael and I produced it with Fonda Ray. Later, the song was redone by Kathy Dennis in '91 and became like a top 3 record all over the world. And in the '80s, as things were changing, my solution to staying in a studio environment where I could learn what young people were doing, coming up with new things, and it sort of became a laboratory environment. But I became chief engineer at Power Play Studio in Long Island City, and over a 4 or 5 year period, I engineered Salt and Pepper's first album, Eric Van Kim's first 3 albums, Dana Dane with Fame, and as chief engineer, kept trying to find solutions because sampling was just starting. There was no real way of doing certain things, but we kept trying to find ways to solve problems, which sort of became the bedrock for how rap records got made. And then after that, in the last 20 years or so, a lot of it has been people sampling my stuff. Like I've been sampled by a lot of people, everybody. Most recently, Mac Miller on his last album. It's a lot of stuff. But my name is probably on about 1,200 records over the last 40 years as either a writer, arranger, producer, or a combination of things.
Yeah. Thank you. Mr. Burgess.
Hello. My name, as you may know, is Leroy Burgess. And I sit next to the gentleman that I consider to be my mentor. He introduced me at the age of 14 into the music business, and with my very first group, the group that would become Black Ivory. And yeah, Black Ivory, yay! Over the course of my career, I've been blessed to do a lot of songs with a lot of great people, a lot of wonderful people who have blessed me with their talent and just their good vibes. Music is everything to me, just everything. You know, I eat, sleep, and breathe music every single day. And Patrick had the foresight to believe in me, not just as a singer, but as a songwriter, composer, so forth and so on, and arranger and producer. And under his tutelage, I learned to arrange, orchestrate, conduct, play better, be better, so forth and so on. If in 2 years from now, I will be active in the music business for 50 years.
Wow.
Grace of God, and I'm so grateful for you guys and the support of people like you and my fans, and you know, because if y'all are not there, there's no reason for me to do it. So, the fact that y'all have embraced my work and you know, just shown me so much love, I can't thank you enough. I continue to perform with Black Ivory. I continue to perform on my own. We're working on new stuff. We got some surprises coming out. I've recently been blessed to work with the great Louis Vega, the great Kenny Carpenter, which is something new, and just so many wonderful DJs and producers, and they just help me continue growing and continue expanding, because music, as you all know, is infinite. It doesn't stop. It doesn't have a beginning and it doesn't have an end. So I'm somewhere in the middle, you know, doing what I do, you know, and just thanking God for every moment of it. So that's my short story, and thank you so much for having me.
Okay, who's going to go? Ray? Okay, Mr. Caviano.
I love this man, sorry. Good evening. I'm going to do a short, because I don't want to waste time. We'll be here all night. And there's another panel coming up that right after this. The short version is that I started with my first record company gig even before, as a teenager, working for various high school bands, Rolling Stone magazine, and various magazines back in the underground music scene. But my first record company job was with London Records, and there I was involved with promoting and doing artist development for acts like Al Green, ZZ Top, Moody Blues, the Rolling Stones, Gilbert O'Sullivan, John Mayall's Blues Breakers, 10 Years After, etc. Then moved on to working with a guy named Miles Copeland, a company called British Talent Managers, who was the brother of Stuart Copeland of the Police, and we did worked with Sire Records and Seymour with Renaissance, Wishbone Ass, etc. And I was working with, in about 76, give or take, an attorney named Alan Grubman, who was one of the biggest entertainment attorneys now in New York. And he introduced me at that point in time to a guy named Tommy Mottola. And I was seeing that something was happening in New York at the Loft and various other underground spots, the 10th floor, the Firehouse, Fire Island, what was happening in the outer boroughs of the Bronx and otherwise, that there was an energy being fostered together. And I put together a network of clubs man who helped me in the early days. He was with 20th Century Records, a guy named Billy Smith, and he helped me formulate getting to know the club scene. He was very instrumental in helping me, and I formalized it and went ahead and did a project for Tommy called Dr. Bizarre's original Savannah Band, which went out to be platinum. Corey Day of that Savannah Band is going to be performing tonight. She only had her hits too, Powwow and Greenlight. And then I met another manager named Ted Hollis. He was the manager of a young lady who was thus passed away with a major hit called Turn the Beat Around, Vicky Sue Robinson. Then Alan introduced me to a guy named Henry Stone.
Henry!
And that was it. It was all bets were off at that point. I had a great list of communicating with jocks from San Francisco to Miami to New York, Bo Crane, Joey Carvello in Boston, and John Luongo, San Francisco, etc. And I had this network. The Billboard reporters were just being formulated. Vince Aletti was going to be on the panel, helped put that together. And with TK, we had hit after hit after hit. T-Connection, Peter Brown, Ralph McDonald, I signed Voyage, Boris Midney, and the list is endless. Foxy, Get Off, Casey the Central, Anita Ward, George McRae, which sold 80 million singles. And with the success of TK, this was in around late '79. I did an independent project for Warner Brothers. Henry lent me out to Mo Austin, and I did an independent project of Madeline Kane, Forbidden Love, that Jim Burgess mix, and that went to #1. And I don't think Henry should have let me out to Warner Brothers because they offered me a deal which was the birth of RFC Records and working all the Warner Brothers product. Chaka Khan, George Benson, on my own label, Luther Vandross with Change and Gino Socio. We did a project with Leroy and Patrick of Venus Dotson that did well in the clubs, Night Rider and Shining. And you know, so that was a great ride. And then moved on, did independent promotion after I left, after the so-called Disco Sucks movement. Took my artists and did independent promotion and did a lot of acts, the Jacksons, Yellow, Bostic, Duran, etc. Even promoted for Yoko Ono, Walking on Thin Ice, if you remember that. And then at that point in time, about a year later, I went to Atlantic Records and continued with Change and Gino Socio and Lace and a whole bunch of acts there, and working Laura Branigan and Gloria, and the list goes on. And now we move up to the new era of RFC Fresh. Has been relaunched about now, over a year. My colleagues here, Leslie Jones and James here. We signed Melissa Morgan as our first artist. We're now working on a new project, Peter Wayne. We got some other things in the ballpark. It's also a multi-entertainment company called Fresh Entertainment. We've done multiple concerts. And talking about mixers, the two mixers that I work with, a lot of mixers, this is a mixers panel. And the two mixers that I really worked with that did great work for me was Jim Burgess, the late Jim Burgess, and the late Larry LeVerne. You know, he did Jimmy Ross for me, he did Lace, Jim did Change, Lover's Holiday, he did Forbidden Love, he did Do You Think I'm Sexy for me, Rod Stewart, etc. So that's my little, there's no time left, right, Tom?
Hey, I'm just here.
Yeah.
So, you're more exciting than I am.
Your resume is ridiculous.
Steve Thompson, everyone.
Well, I feel honored just to be around everyone here. I think everybody knows a little bit about my background being a DJ from New York and Long Island. A couple of years ago. It's kind of interesting, first of all, you know, being a DJ when I started, there wasn't really many clubs that had DJs unless you went to the gay clubs. Not really many straight clubs. And I actually got into DJing by accident because I would go to this club, Leone's in Deer Park, and they would have bands performing, and then if the band went on, you had a jukebox. So I said, hey, why don't you put a DJ in here? This way you keep the excitement going on. Now understand, I was working at a record store, so I had a pretty cool record collection at the time. It's probably about 71, 72. So I get a call a month later, says, hey, we just put in a DJ booth for you. And I'm looking at myself, I don't know anything about this. But I had a good record collection. Okay.
Now I gotta do it.
So that's how I started, and after a while I started getting my chops together. Jackie McCloy was very nice to let me go into the Long Island DJ record pool. And I'll never forget this one time. I don't know, does anybody know Vince Michaels? Vince Michaels gave me 2 words that stay with me today. And I love him like a brother, and I sadly miss him. He heard me DJ, and he said, "Steve," I go, "What? You suck." That was probably the biggest motivating factor anybody could ever get. I don't know if you remember Jackie.
Jackie says he remembers.
I love it. I mean, for somebody to come up and say, "You suck," that was pretty cool. So, again, started to get my thing going on here, and life was hell as a DJ before 1100s and 1200s came out. I hated Thorne's turntables, and wasn't a big fan of the Bozak mixes because I like faders better than not, but there was another point in my life where I thought I really sucked as a DJ, and that's when I heard Paul Casella. And Jackie McCoy, by the way. I said, God, I got a long way to go. So at that point, I was hanging out with Phil Silverman a lot, and we would go crazy, because, you know, when you were DJing, you worked till 4 in the morning, and we always wanted to get the edge on everything, so we'd get our records from the record pool. We'd go to bed about 5 in the morning, wake up about 8, take a train, go to Manhattan, hit all the record companies. And then, like, on Thursday, Friday, go to Rock and Soul, downstairs, Vinyl Mania. Yeah, we had to get our imports, because, you know, and we went back to the school of BPMing, you know, because, you know, we get a stack of records like this. We want to make sure that Friday night we played everything. So take your 15 seconds out and BPM them. And what I find, I'll just talk a little quick about the DJ before I get into production work. I love working on 4 turntables. That was my thing. You know, the more the better. And I understand everything about technology today with Tractor, and you know, you can put your whole set on a little USB and just plug it in the computer. But I don't know about any DJs out there, but I love the manual. You know, even the Wicca shit. You know, I love that manual. Just like, I mean, you know, when music came out in the early '70s, if a song started at 116 beats per minute, doesn't mean it stayed there. Okay, so you're working that pitch control forever. Today, Tractor, any song today is 132. It will be 132. Okay, rest is short. I'll say, where's it? You know, and I go to the EDM festivals. I've been to Ultra, Electric Daisy, and all that. And I gotta be honest with you, I got goosebumps. I remember the first time I saw Carl Cox, Tiesto, Skrillex, Deadmau. And I got goosebumps when I saw 60,000 kids with the best light show in the world. It make Pink Floyd's light show look like nothing. And see the energy of that crowd and what they did. And I felt like a grandpa saying, well, at least we started something, you know? And I was very proud. I was like a proud papa when I saw that, you know? So, you know, everybody talks about, you know, what was it like DJing then and now. I guarantee you guys, if we had that technology back in the day, we'd fucking use it. But, you know, anyway, getting to making records, which was interesting. Roy B, you in the house?
He's outside.
Oh, okay. Mr. Steroids.
He's at the bar.
All right, in 1976, I believe it was, we had a first opportunity, I believe it was Phil and myself, to work on this record called Disco Hustle. And the idea was Anime Roulette was put together the top club artists of the time and put a compilation together. So obviously we started with Donna Summers. I mean, how could you go wrong? I think it was Crown Heights Affair, maybe it was Down to Love Town. I'm not sure what the set list was. But we put the album together, sequencing like a dance party non-stop. But you couldn't use records. I think we had to use reel-to-reel tapes to sequence it. And then they wound up making us be in the TV commercial. And doing the hustle on a TV commercial was probably one of the low parts of my life. But anyway, I'm going to make a long story short. So I believe that record sold 12 million copies. So it made Mars Lee even more money, okay, which he really needed. But we got no credit on the record. Thanks, Roy. But to make another long story short, we talk about the TK days. A friend of mine, Ron Brady, owned the club Barrymore's in Long Island, 77. Used to DJ there. I'll make a quick story. He left there. I'm working at Uncle Sam's with Mike Arado, another great DJ. And he got us to get in with Henry Stone. I said, let's see what you can do. So we wound up taking a song, like I think it was Sully B, Fly Me on the Wings of Love. Mike Arado and myself, we edited it, phased it, flanges, just make it extended. Henry loved it, so he hired us. So that's when we went in, we did Catman Do the Break. Take a Chance, Queen Samantha, another thing. I know we did George McRae. I mean, we did so many things with TK. Uncle Louie.
James Bradley.
At midnight.
Huh?
James Bradley.
James Bradley, thank you, sir. Mr. Amy.
T-Connection.
Oh, we didn't do T-Connection. I would love to take credit for that, but not. Yeah, you know. Ray will take the credit. So we wound up doing all these remixes in '79, and then when the disco sucked year went, I went back to the clubs, stayed in the clubs. And then in the early '80s, I got a great break to work on R&Bers from Stephanie Mills, Cameo, Barcase. I started doing all this R&B. Then, as you said, the music switched, and I got into working with what they call New Wave. I mean, I did Talk It's My Life, Psychedelic Furs, Shout Tears for Fears, Heartbreak Beat, Missing Persons, David Bowie, and we started doing all that work. And then we went back to pop music again, and I worked with Madonna on Open Your Heart, Whitney Houston, I Want to Dance with Somebody, and Aretha Franklin, Who's Zooming Who, and everything. And I was doing all that. And believe it or not, I was getting bored. So I called my manager at the time. I said, listen, I need to do something fresh. Give me some rock stuff to do. So I hooked up with Geffen Records, and the first two projects I did were Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction, and Tesla. So all my dance friends said, what the hell are you doing? Is Judy Weinstein here? Judy? She's at the bar?
Is she really?
So anyway, I started doing all these rock projects, and what's interesting, when you're in the music industry, whatever your last record was, that's what you do. And what really pissed me off, I went from Johnny Mathis to fucking Korn. Okay? I did Begin to Begin, which is one of my favorite records I ever worked on. I love that record. But it's quite interesting, because I've always wanted to be diverse in what I do. And so then, I started doing like Cinderella, Tesla, Dokken, Alice Cooper, and Soundgarden, this and that, and I got bored again. So I need to do something different. At the end of the 80s, we did great. We sold a lot of records. I sound like Trump now. I was getting sick of the rock music, hearing bands like Poison and Warren. I said, if this is where rock is going to go, I don't want anything to do with it. So I got a call from a friend of mine saying, hey, I just signed this new band. I said, great, what's the name of the band? He goes, Soundgarden. Would you be interested? And I listened to him, I said, oh, this is perfect for me. So I stopped DJing full-time probably around 87, 88. The studio worked out a lot. And what I love about working in the studios compared to DJing is, I'm a writer now, an arranger, a producer, a mixer. And I just love creating with great artists in the studio. I mean, nothing gets me more excited when you bring great musicians in the studio and be able to communicate with them. I mean, I was fortunate to work with the best singers and the best musicians in the world. And now, obviously, it's a little different. You could just, as far as remixers go, all right, just give me the vocal and I'm going to create a whole new track around it. When I did remixing back in the day, we had to use the original production and add to it, And I kind of like that because you kind of wanted to keep the integrity of the song. And there's are we out of here, Louis?
We're going to need to wrap it up, but go ahead, Steve.
As far as remixing, since I've been a remixer, producer, I can see the whole spectrum of how to craft a record. And what I tell artists today, say you're working on a record, hey, it could be a dance record, but it's a ballad. Great. Let's put what we feel define the best version on the album, and we can do a remix. Real easy. I remember I produced Ziggy Marley, People Get Ready. We won the Grammy for that song. And I forgot, somebody remixed it, but I don't know how a song went from 82 BPMs to 142. I like reggae, so, I just want to, get that little shake going on there. But that's what remixing today is, you know, with everything done on a computer, you kind of lose that human quality. I get it. You know, it's dance music. I mean, I think my favorite productions are a lot of EDM tracks. I mean, I love the production of them, but I wish they would work on songs more. You know, if they had great lyrics, you got a winner, because I think the productions are stellar for the most part. Anyway, that's enough
Okay.
about me.
It's a good segue from Patrick to Leroy. Patrick, you've been articulating for quite a while now. I've seen you actually write narratives. Somewhat not controversial, but yeah, talking about the whole element of going back. I mean, we can't turn back the clock, if you will. But where do you see the trend from a producer's point of view and getting back to more of a song-oriented type business, whatever the genre is, R&B, EDM, dance music, however you want to slice it. What's your perspective now in terms of moving forward with the music?
My problem is really not on the creative end. You will always, the cream will always rise to the top. I had a staff of 34 writers at one time, and I used to tell them, you know, don't come running in here with something that you wrote in 5 minutes and expect me to record it with somebody, because while we're sitting here doing this, there's some kid in Ohio or out in Texas somewhere who is taking weeks and sometimes months crafting a great lyric. You know, like Diane Warren is my favorite person. Every time I hear one of her songs, I say, damn, why didn't I think of that? Because the lyrics are so, I mean, you can relate to them. So I tell my writers and I tell producers who I work with, whatever you do, the product has to be something that the audience has to care about. They have to relate to it. When they hear a song, they have to say either, yeah, I know how you feel, that happened to me, or that didn't happen to me, but I still know what it means. So what I'm saying is, my problem is with the industry as a whole, that at this point, it has devolved and devolved and devolved, because what we have always called the suits, you know, the accountants and the
They're
lawyers,
running the show.
yeah, they're running the show, and it's, for them, it's like, give me another one like the other one. Give me something I can make money with. It has nothing to do with talent. It has nothing to do with creativity. It's just about making a dollar. Someone had me go to YouTube and listen to a certain genre of records, and I gotta tell you, I stuck with it for an hour, listening to this, that. And then I called the person back and said, what did I just listen to? I listened to an hour of nonsense. You know, they say the internet leveled the playing field. It did level the playing field, except that now that playing field is like a beach, and you got millions of grains of sand, and everybody thinks they're gonna get rich overnight. You know, the whole, American Idol, blah, 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 blah. It's giving a lot of people false hope. ASCAP used to have 200,000 writers. At this point, there must be 1 million people who joined ASCAP. And the truth of it is, they're never gonna make money. That's the truth. I got a statement from Warner Brothers. I mean, I love Warner Brothers, but I got a statement from Warner Brothers the other day for $15.
Yeah, streaming revenue.
Is streaming, which is the whole, that's the whole thing itself.
Can I answer what you're saying here? Because I understand, you know, obviously Patrick's been making music longer than me. I look at it this way, when I write music or I'm working with an artist, you know, I'll use the Taylor Swift principle. I want to define what my audience is, and that's how I determine how to write for that artist, okay? Now, obviously, every generation has their own way of saying things. You know, give you, for instance, if you wrote a song like the Beatles, there was #1 song, She Loves You, Yeah, 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 they'd laugh you out, okay? Maybe it goes, I'll tap that ass, yeah, yeah, yeah. Different. But every generation has their own way of saying things. And, you know, and I understand what Patrick's saying. I agree with it. I mean, I produced 3 or 4 songs that Diane wrote. I produced one for Joe Cocker, a couple for Expose. Great songs. I mean, she actually, I love Diane. She just won an Emmy. That song she did with Lady Gaga. And I agree lyrically, but again, working in the music industry today, and I agree about streaming. You know, record companies are making their money off of advertising and the backs of the creators. See, the problem is with artists today is they don't have in their contracts streaming revenues. I mean, and that's what I loved about Cliff Bernstein and Peter Mensch. They got digital rights years ago. So the artists are not covered for the wave stream. Now, you know, you look at, as you looked at, I've seen my streaming revenues, and I think it's a joke. But thank God my records are still selling today. But, you know, you're getting 0.000.6 on a thing. But streaming is twofold. First of all, streaming is basically you're getting paid to play on radio. The people do not own the song. It's not like buying the CD, okay? It's a radio. You're getting paid for radio. Now here's the deal. My feeling is, and I've always said this, how about we make music that's worth buying? I mean, we can look at Adele, we can look at Taylor Swift, we can look at Bruno Mars. I mean, you know, obviously the EDM guys, they have their own niche. They'll just throw it out there. They just make tracks and everything. I think there are exceptions to the rule. Avicii, I think he's retired now. But, you know, I really feel that, you know, I'd love to see, where's the new Marvin Gaye? Where's the new Aretha Franklin? Where's the new Led Zeppelin? And I feel that it's important that we as a music society have to give them that vehicle. If we're going to think American Idol's the be-all and end-all, who cares about perfect pitch? I mean, that's all it is. It's karaoke perfect pitch. Where's the human quality of a voice? Where's the human quality of songs?
If I can just jump in there.
Okay, jump in.
Hi. What's missing to me, what's the problem with the music industry, besides it being taken over by the suit that Patrick described, is quality. The quality of music has changed, gone down significantly. You know, to the point where most people, when you hear them talk about today's music, there's one thing that they all say: it sucks. It sucks. I don't want to listen to it. I don't listen to today's radio, and so forth and so on. And Patrick and I have had a conversation, many conversations in the past, about the 60s and 70s, how when you turn on WABC or WMCA or something like that, in the course of a half hour to an hour, there was so much diverse music that inspired you in different ways, taking you into rock and R&B and dance and so forth and so on. All the young creative minds, the 12 and 13-year-olds, which I was at that time, all right, our minds started going in terms of what can I create? What can I do? How can I make something good? See, because what we have out here today is not so much good as it is effective and functional. You understand? And that's not something I need to listen to. You understand? When I listen to music, I want to be inspired. I want to feel it. I want to be moved. I want it to take me somewhere. All right? In case I'm in a bad mood, I want it to make me feel better. In case I'm in a good mood, I want it to make me feel even better than that. That's what music is not doing these days. All right? Because the formulaic way that they are looking at, that corporations are looking at putting out music, it doesn't serve what music used to serve, which is the soul. Feed the soul. Make everybody feel good. You understand? No matter whether you are imparting a message with some negativity or a political message, or if you were talking about love or something like that. You understand? You made the person, the listener, become a part of that experience. And when you mention Marvin Gaye, all right? Marvin Gaye, Stevie Wonder, Aretha Franklin, they draw you in with their talent. You understand? A lot of today's artists are not talent driven.
It's not about, unfortunately, the way that business, and I believe me, my favorite singer of all time is David Ruffin. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay? See, we were spoiled. We grew up in a different generation, okay? How do you top Motown? How do you top, from Pink Floyd to Zeppelin? You can't, okay? Today's generation, again, I have to respect them. They want to listen to shit that their parents aren't going to like, and they're doing a good job of it, okay? I mean, every generation's done that. I mean, classical music used to be considered heavy metal. I understand that. I get it. I mean, I was working with Public Enemy and Wu-Tang. Hell, I know my parents would go, what the hell is that? I get that. Today's lyrics have been dumbed down. I get that. I mean, you listen to Nicki Minaj, okay? I mean, Jerry Lembo, you work on a lot of this stuff. No, where is it? Yeah. Where are you looking? Okay, I remember writing a song. It was called Kiss Me Strong, and it was kind of like a Rihanna meets Britney Spears song. It was really cool. And it was a very suggestive sexually, but it didn't say, get really crazy. And I remember Nate Argyle saying, yeah, it'd be good, but the lyrics aren't dirty enough. And I see, you're not leaving much up to you. I like writing songs that have double and triple entendres. Leave it up to people to think about it, It could mean everything, okay? That's how I write lyrics. I mean, I'm more fun writing music.
That's what worked in films like Psycho, where you never actually see the violence. It leaves it to the imagination, and it helps you think, and thereby making you a part of the creative process.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have to fill in that blank, and you have to fill in that gap. And that's one of the things that makes music so wonderful. So that the absence of that is something that I think we'll all miss.
I totally agree, but understand two things of what's going on today. The kids today do not value music the way we used to because there's other things to keep them busy. You have this, you have your texting, you have your YouTube, keeps them busy, okay? They don't, I'm not saying they're wrong, and plus they're used to getting it for free. All right, okay, how many people here, okay, I like this song, I like this song here, I can download for free. Why am I gonna pay for it? That's a problem, okay? If you want to deal with record companies, again, they figured out a way how they can get their revenue stream going without having to pay a lot of money. And again, we all want, the only way that we're gonna change music, again, every generation has their own way of saying things. We like to educate the young kids. Okay, we need to do that. But we need the vehicle to be able to do it. Record companies are into, 12, 13, 14-year-old pop artists. I mean, how Taylor came out and everything. And I'm working with this girl now, she's 16, she's gonna be whatever. But, they want to get the quick fix. They want to hit the board members on the first quarter and just keep smacking them out there. Their job is not to find, okay, if we look at hip hop, it's all mumble hop in there now. Okay, I get that,
We got to get moving.
We gotta move.
Again, this was a great panel, and we could go till midnight.
I just want to have one final word. This is going to be a big segue into our next panel about the state of music, state of past, present, and future of dance music. But I'll say this from a producer's point of view, and from my vantage point of having signed music, promoted it, etc., that however you slice it, whatever the genre, whether it's Calvin Harris or Johnny Gill or Tyrese or whoever it may be, it's still about fundamentally a song. So from my position and working with the gentleman here at RFC Fresh, what we first look at is the strength of the song. We'll figure out everything later in terms of how it's going to be promoted and marketed. If I have a strong song, then we can move forward, no matter the suits, the streaming, or whatever. And we're going to talk about the state of the business in a minute.
Okay,
here
great.
For the next one.
So again, let's make some noise for Great Caviano, Steve Thompson, Leroy Burgess, and Patrick Adams. We can do this till midnight. Great job, guys. Great job. Very interesting.